They say you don't really know someone until you live under the same roof. I used to think that was just something people said to sound wise. But now I feel it in my bones. I learned it the hard way. On the morning I stood in the kitchen of my boyfriend's family home, heart pounding, hands trembling, while his sister looked me dead in the eye and said, "You think this bed is yours? Nothing in this house belongs to you." And just like that, I stopped feeling like part of the family. I was just a guest, a tolerated inconvenience in her little kingdom. My name is Lily. I had just turned 20. I was a college student trying to save money, juggling late-night assignments and weekend shifts at a diner. My boyfriend Chris had suggested I stay with him and his family for a while. His mom, Anna, welcomed me with warm arms and homemade soup. She reminded me of my late aunt, soft-spoken, kind, always asking if I had eaten. For a while it felt like home, until Emily walked in. Chris's older sister, 25, unemployed, sharp tongue, harsher attitude. She strutted around like the queen of the castle, even though she didn't pay a single bill. And she hated me. I tried brushing it off at first. Maybe she was just having a bad week. Maybe she felt protective of her space. But it never got better. She'd insult me in small, cutting ways. Like when I bought a small twin bed for the guest room I was staying in, and she laughed, "That flimsy thing looks like it belongs in a junkyard." She didn't stop there. She loosened the screws under the bed frame one day, probably hoping it would collapse while I slept. I caught her mid-fiddle, and when I firmly told her to stop, she screamed. Like I had slapped her. Like I had dared to challenge the monarch on her throne. But what hurt the most wasn't her yelling. It wasn't the pettiness. It was Chris, standing beside me, frozen, saying nothing. That's when I felt it, this heavy truth settling in my chest. No matter how kind Anna was, or how many nights I stayed under that roof, it would never truly be my home. Not as long as Emily ruled it. I swallowed the pain that night and forced a smile at dinner. But a seed had been planted. Not of rage, not yet, but of something sharper, quieter, the kind of hurt that doesn't scream, but remembers. If you've ever been made to feel like an outsider in someone else's house, if you've ever been talked down to by someone who thought they were untouchable, this story is for you. Stick with me, because what Emily didn't know is that I wasn't as quiet as she thought. If this hits close to home, don't forget to subscribe and share your story in the comments. I read every one. You're not alone. I wasn't expecting a grand celebration, just a quiet dinner, maybe a small cake. After all, it was my 20th birthday. Nothing too big, just something that felt a little like love. Chris had promised he'd cook. His mom, Anna, even hinted at baking her famous apple crumble. I felt something soft blooming in my chest that morning. Like maybe this house could still feel safe, even with Emily stomping around in it. I should have known better. It started before sunset. I was setting the table, trying not to hum too loudly. I knew Emily hated when I sounded too happy. Chris was in the kitchen, wearing an apron 2 sizes too small and making an adorable mess out of pasta sauce. Anna had just gotten home from work, still in her nursing scrubs, tired but smiling as she carried a paper bag with candles and a small birthday card tucked inside. And then the front door slammed. Emily. She stormed in, sunglasses on despite the fading light, keys clattering on the table. I barely had time to smile before she narrowed her eyes at me, then turned to her mother. "What the hell, Mom? You left me at the salon. You knew I had a ride scheduled. Why didn't you wait?" Anna blinked, confused. "Emily, I waited 15 minutes. You never showed." Emily's voice rose like a whip. "That's not the point. You were supposed to wait until I told you to leave." The room froze. Chris dropped the wooden spoon into the sink. I held the napkin I was folding a little too tightly. Then, right there, in front of her mother, her brother, and me, Emily threw her purse across the room, knocking over a vase of lilies Anna had placed near the window. Water spilled across the floor. Shards of glass skittered under the table. "No one ever listens to me in this damn house." Anna, God bless her patience, calmly walked over to pick up the pieces. But Emily wasn't done. She spun on me next, eyes blazing. "And you! Are you seriously acting like this is your party or something? You've been here for what, 2 months, sleeping in a room that isn't even yours, eating our food, sitting at our table. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stood there. Stood. Chris opened his mouth, but again, nothing came out. That silence from him, it hurt more than the words. Then she walked up to me, just a few inches away. That cheap-ass bed you brought in, that's not yours either. It's in my house. You don't own anything here. She said it with a smirk, like she had won, like breaking me down in front of everyone was her version of blowing out the candles. And in that moment, I felt something inside me harden. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned away, quietly picked up the birthday card Anna had brought home, and walked to the back porch. I sat outside for the next 20 minutes, listening to Chris try to reason with her. It didn't work. Nothing ever did. She yelled. She played the victim. And eventually she retreated to her room, slamming the door so hard it made the windows rattle. Chris came outside, guilt in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said softly. I nodded, but I didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't. That night, we still ate the pasta. We still lit the candles, but the energy had shifted. The room felt smaller, dimmer, and I knew this wasn't just another one of Emily's tantrums. It was a warning shot, a message. She wanted me gone. But what she didn't realize is that I wasn't planning to leave, not quietly. That night, I lay awake in the tiny twin bed Emily had mocked. The moonlight crept through the blinds, striping the room in silver shadows. Chris had fallen asleep hours ago, his breathing steady beside me, but I couldn't turn off my thoughts. They looped on repeat. The birthday ruined, the vase shattering, her voice snarling in front of everyone, telling me nothing in this house was mine. She had said it with such certainty, like I was disposable, like I was just passing through a life she believed belonged solely to her. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the anger crawl under my skin. Not the loud kind, not the scream into a pillow kind. No, this was colder, sharper, the kind of anger that remembers. I thought about every time I'd bitten my tongue to keep the peace, every small thing I let slide. When she poured herself the last of the orange juice and left the empty carton in the fridge. When she wore my hoodie and claimed it looked better on her. When she shoved past me in the hallway like I was invisible. When she rolled her eyes every time I spoke, even when I was just answering a question her mom asked. But it wasn't just her words or the passive aggression. It was the control. She enjoyed reminding everyone she was untouchable. I realized then, Emily wasn't just mean. She was a bully in a silk robe. And I was done playing polite. That's when I remembered a TikTok video I'd seen a few weeks earlier. Some girl had accidentally stripped her box-dyed hair using vitamin C tablets and vinegar. I'd saved it because I found it weirdly fascinating at the time, never thinking I'd ever use it. But now it felt like divine timing. Emily had been dyeing her hair jet black for years. It was her signature. She bragged about how rich the color looked, how soft it felt, how she never had split ends. She'd even scolded Chris once for using her shampoo by mistake. That bottle sat on the shower shelf like a crown jewel, labeled, guarded, untouchable, perfect. The next morning, I woke up early, before anyone else, and walked to the pharmacy 2 blocks down. Bought a bottle of cheap white vinegar, a box of vitamin C tablets, and a pack of sea salt. The cashier smiled, probably thinking I was making a DIY face scrub or some kind of health drink. Nope. I crushed 10 tablets with the back of a spoon until they turned into a fine, powdery dust. Mixed it with the vinegar and salt until it formed a slushy paste. Then funneled it into the bottle of her sacred black dye protecting shampoo. I shook it gently, put it back in its exact spot, and walked out of the bathroom without a trace. The first time she used it, nothing happened. Or at least she didn't say anything. But by the third wash, I noticed the towels she used were a little stained, slightly gray. She started complaining to Chris that her ends were looking dull and not holding color. By the end of the week, she was furious. "This brand must have changed the formula. My hair is literally fading every time I wash it. It's like brown now. It's never been brown." I sat at the kitchen table, slowly sipping my coffee, pretending to scroll through my phone. Maybe it's buildup, I said casually. Or maybe you're just using too much heat? She narrowed her eyes at me like she could sense something. But she didn't have proof. No one did. That's the thing about quiet revenge. It doesn't need an audience. Just patience. That night, Chris pulled me aside. Thanks for staying calm lately. I know Emily's been intense. I smiled and kissed him on the cheek. I didn't need to explain myself. Some victories don't need applause. They just need to be felt. In the frizzed ends of someone's hair, in the panic behind their vanity, in the unraveling of a person too used to being untouchable. Emily's vanity was her religion. She had a daily routine as precise as a military drill. Wake up at 10, shower with her professional-grade shampoo, air dry her hair just enough before blow-drying it straight, then spend 45 minutes curling, styling, and glossing every strand. She didn't just maintain her looks, she worshipped them. And her hair? That was the crown. She once told me, straight-faced, that some girls wear makeup, some wear fashion. I wear perfect hair. As if split ends were beneath her. As if she breathed a higher brand of oxygen than the rest of us. That made what happened next all the more satisfying. It started slow. She noticed the fading first. By the end of week 1, the deep black had turned ashy, slightly reddish under the sun. But she brushed it off, literally, and blamed sun exposure and bad water. Then the texture changed. One morning, she stormed into the kitchen, brushing furiously with one hand and holding a clump of broken strands in the other. "This house has hard water," she snapped. "It's ruining my cuticle layer." Chris looked confused. "But we use a filter?" She ignored him, of course. Emily never needed facts to back up her outrage. But by week 2, she couldn't deny it anymore. I walked past the bathroom and caught a glimpse of her reflection. Her hair, once sleek and obsidian, was now a patchy, uneven dark brown. The ends were dry, like straw. There were even faint orange streaks near her temples. It was poetic. The same streaks of rust she used to laugh at when she saw bad dye jobs online. I watched as she leaned in closer to the mirror, fingers shaking, running through her damaged strands. "No, no," she whispered. "This isn't happening." She tried every trick in the book, clarifying shampoos, protein masks, even a panicked visit to a salon downtown. I overheard her on the phone that night. "They said my hair is reacting to some kind of chemical stripping agent," she said, almost whispering, like the diagnosis was too shameful to say out loud. "But I haven't done anything different. I've been using the same products." She sounded scared, and that's when I realized something. Emily wasn't just angry. She was losing control. Her looks were her armor, her power, the thing she used to assert dominance in every room. Take that away. And what was left? Just another insecure girl who never learned to be kind. Meanwhile, I played the innocent housemate to perfection. I asked questions like, "Are you sure it's not buildup?" Or "Maybe it's stress. I've read stress can affect hair texture." I offered coconut oil. I Googled natural hair remedies and left printed articles near the bathroom sink. I even complimented her once. "It still looks okay, like kind of ombre." She glared at me like I'd kicked her puppy. But what could she say? There was no proof, no confrontation, just the slow unraveling of her self-image, one shampoo at a time. And the best part? No one suspected a thing. Not Chris, not Anna, not even Emily, who had a sixth sense for gossip but zero self-awareness. The house started to shift. Anna began inviting me to sit beside her during family dinners. Chris started opening up more, confiding how drained he felt trying to keep the peace between his sister and the rest of the world. Even the dog started sleeping outside my door instead of Emily's. The little kingdom she ruled with vanity and volume was cracking. And I hadn't even raised my voice. But here's the thing about people like Emily. They don't go down without trying to drag someone with them. She wasn't going to just crumble quietly. She could feel something was off. Even if she couldn't prove it, she could sense that the world wasn't orbiting around her anymore, so she did what queens do when they're dethroned. She started looking for someone to blame, and I was the easiest target. By the end of week 3, Emily was unraveling, and not just her hair. She was paranoid. She started hovering around the bathroom door when I showered, rearranging her bottles on the shelf to check if anything had moved, counting her shampoo pumps. I caught her once sniffing the bottle like a detective with a magnifying glass. She didn't say anything, just stared at me afterward with narrowed eyes, like she was trying to see through my skin. But it didn't matter. By then, the damage was done. The chemical cocktail I had slipped into her sacred shampoo had stripped more than just dye. It had cracked the mirror she looked into every day, figuratively and almost literally. One morning, I heard a loud smack from the bathroom. I peeked in an hour later. Her compact mirror was in the trash, shattered. That day, Emily didn't come out of her room until dinner, and when she did, her hair was pulled into a tight bun, something she never did. It was her way of hiding defeat, of pretending it wasn't happening. But it was, and everyone could see it now. Chris mentioned it casually that night. "She's not really herself lately," he whispered to me as we did the dishes. "She's been snapping at Mom, at me, even at the dog." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Anna, bless her, had tried comforting her at first, offering salon referrals, protein masks, tea tree oil. But Emily rejected it all. She didn't want help. She wanted control. And since she couldn't fix her hair, she started focusing on the next best thing, blaming me. At first it was subtle. "Oh, Lily, you used the guest towel again?" Or, "Are you sure you didn't mix up our shampoos?" But soon it became more direct. One evening, she cornered me in the hallway as I came out of the laundry room. "Funny how my hairs only started falling out after you moved in." I stared at her, stunned. Not because she said it, because of how small her voice sounded. Not angry, just uncertain. Like she wanted to accuse me, but couldn't quite prove it. I tilted my head and smiled, just enough to be kind. "That's a weird coincidence," I said gently. "You should check the ingredients. Sulfates can be sneaky." She blinked, swallowed, and walked away. She knew. She just couldn't say it. And that ate at her even more. Emily began watching me more closely after that. Not just in the bathroom, but everywhere. She listened when I talked to Chris, interrupted when I laughed with Anna, scoffed when I wore something new. But the more she tried to make me uncomfortable, the more at home I felt. It was ironic. She had spent weeks trying to remind me I didn't belong here, that I was just a guest. But suddenly she was the one being tolerated. Her outbursts were met with silence. Her insults went ignored. Even her boyfriend, who once hung on her every word, stopped texting as often. I saw her check her phone again and again, waiting for a reply that never came. Her power wasn't just fading, it was gone. I didn't plan to keep hurting her. I didn't need to. But when someone like Emily falls, they don't just land softly. They crash, loudly, messily. And in their desperation to rise again, they always look for someone to push down. So when she finally snapped, it wasn't just over hair. It was over me. And it happened in front of everyone. It happened on a Thursday. Dinner was simple: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, comfort food. The kind of meal that brought a tired family together at the end of the day. Anna had set the table with her usual care. Chris lit the candles like he always did, even though no one in the house really cared about ambiance except him. I helped in the kitchen, keeping my hands busy while trying to ignore the tension thickening in the air like smoke. Emily was late, which wasn't new, but when she finally walked in, she didn't say a word. No sarcastic remark, no eye roll. She just sat down, her shoulders stiff, her mouth a tight line. Her hair was pulled back again, tight bun, no strands loose. From the way her skin looked slightly pink near her scalp, she'd clearly tried another stripping treatment that had backfired. She looked like she was about to combust, and she did. Halfway through dinner, Chris had just started telling a story about some ridiculous customer interaction he'd had at work. Anna laughed. I smiled. The mood was decent. Then Emily dropped her fork, hard. The clatter silenced the table. She didn't pick it up, just looked straight at me, eyes sharp enough to slice through glass. "I know it was you," she said flatly. Chris blinked. "What?" Emily leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table like she was preparing to argue a case in court. "She did something to my shampoo. I don't know how or when, but she messed with it. My hair's ruined. I've seen the TikToks, the exact fading, the texture change, the smell. I'm not an idiot. No one said anything. The room froze. I set my fork down slowly. Anna glanced between us. Emily, are you sure? That's a big accusation. She's been acting fake this whole time, Emily snapped, pointing at me. Smiling, being all sweet with you guys, playing the perfect little guest. But she's been sabotaging me. Chris frowned. That's ridiculous. Lily wouldn't. She hates me, Emily barked, voice rising. And don't pretend you don't know why. You've all taken her side since the moment she moved in. Now she was standing. You think I haven't noticed? You all love her now. She walks in here with her little polite act and suddenly I'm the problem. I've lived here my whole life. And you just let her walk in and take over. She turned on me. This was your plan, wasn't it? Make me look crazy. Break me down until I explode. Her voice cracked at that last word. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Anna looked stunned, hurt. Chris looked tired, really tired. I think you should sit down, he said quietly. But Emily was shaking now. You're defending her? Her? You're not making it easy to defend you, Emily, Chris said. Boom. Silence. She looked at him like he'd slapped her. Her eyes flicked to Anna for backup, but Anna just folded her napkin slowly and whispered, I think you need help, sweetheart. Real help. That was it. The unraveling, the last thread, tugged loose by her own hand. Emily stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched, face burning red. She looked like she wanted to scream, cry, break something, or maybe all three at once. But she didn't. She just picked up her plate, walked to the sink, and slammed it down so hard it cracked. Then she walked out the front door. She didn't come home that night, or the next. Chris texted her. Anna called. No answer. And me? I sat in the quiet that followed. Not proud, not smug, just still. Because for the first time since I stepped foot in that house, no one was walking on eggshells. No one was dodging insults or pretending everything was fine. The storm had passed, and she had taken it with her. The next morning, the house was unnaturally quiet. No slamming doors, no blaring pop music from Emily's room, no sharp heels clicking down the hallway like a warning shot, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional chirp from the backyard. I woke up before Chris. For the first time in weeks, I felt light, not euphoric, not smug, just free. Like the weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been silently lifted during the night. But I knew the silence wouldn't last forever. By 9 a.m., Chris had gotten 3 missed calls from Emily. He stared at his phone, face unreadable. I didn't ask. I didn't offer an opinion. I just made coffee and slid him a mug, the way I always did. She stayed at Amanda's last night, he finally said. She told Mom she's not coming back until I get my priorities straight. I raised an eyebrow. And what does that mean? He looked up, and for once, his eyes didn't carry the usual mix of guilt and exhaustion. They were clear, steady. I think it means choosing between her version of this family and the one we're building. The words hung there between us. He continued, She's been like this for years, Lily. Manipulative, loud, controlling. I always defended her because I felt like I had to. Because that's what you do for family. I stayed quiet, letting him speak. But she doesn't get to weaponize that word anymore. She doesn't get to act like family means we all tiptoe around her tantrums while she poisons the air. He paused. I saw what she did to you, and I saw how you handled it. You didn't stoop to her level. You stayed patient, kind, stronger than I ever gave you credit for. My heart thudded a little harder in my chest. Chris, he reached for my hand. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it. We sat there in the stillness, fingers intertwined, and for the first time, the house didn't feel like hers anymore. It felt like ours. That weekend, Emily came back, but only to pack. She barely looked at anyone, said she was done living in a place where no one respected her boundaries. Chris helped carry her boxes down the steps without a word. Anna cried, but not in the way you'd expect. It wasn't sorrow, it was release. A quiet mourning for the version of her daughter she thought might return someday. I stood in the doorway as Emily brushed past me, suitcase in hand. She stopped for a moment, eyes scanning me from head to toe. "You really think you won, don't you?" she said, voice low. I met her gaze, calm, unshaken. "This wasn't a competition, Emily. It was just reality catching up." She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and walked out. And that was the last time she ever lived in that house. Later that night, Chris and I sat on the back porch under a sky scattered with stars. It was quiet again, but this time it felt earned. "You sure about this?" I asked him. "It's your sister, your family." He didn't hesitate. "You're my family now." And just like that, the house stopped being a battlefield. It became a home. 6 months had passed, 6 months of quiet mornings, real laughter at dinner, and a house that no longer felt like it was holding its breath. Chris and I had officially moved into a small apartment just 10 minutes from his mom's house. It wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, second floor, old hardwood floors that creaked when you walked barefoot. But it was ours. I finally had space that didn't come with conditions. I could leave a book on the table, hang a photo on the wall, or laugh too loud without someone accusing me of taking up too much space. I had even gone back to school full-time, something I'd been putting off for years. Chris was thriving at work, and we were building something real, quietly, steadily, with no drama and no need to explain ourselves. And then one Saturday afternoon, I saw her again. It was completely by accident. I was running errands, groceries, dry cleaning, the usual weekend loop. I had just stepped into the little pharmacy around the corner to pick up toothpaste when I heard the familiar clack of high heels. My heart skipped a beat before I even turned around. Emily, standing near the hair care aisle, holding a box of jet black hair dye in one hand. Our eyes locked. She froze. Just for a second. Then she smirked. That same smirk I used to dread, the one she used to wear like armor. But now it looked thinner, like a mask that no longer quite fit. She was dressed well, as always, hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail that didn't quite hide the uneven texture at the ends. Her nails were still done, her makeup perfect. But something in her posture had changed. I could tell. So could she. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, voice still sharp but lacking its old edge. I smiled, calm. "Hi, Emily. How have you been?" She scoffed. "Thriving, obviously." There was a beat of silence. She looked me up and down like she was searching for something to criticize. My shoes, my hair, my clothes. But I wasn't playing defense anymore. I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I just stood there, shoulders relaxed, chin lifted, and I could see it. The realization on her face. I wasn't the same girl she had once mocked at the dinner table, the one she thought she could push out of the house with a few cutting remarks and a slammed door. I had changed, because when someone shows you just how cruel they can be, and you still rise anyway, they lose power over you. "You still with my brother?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, we're good." Another silence. This one heavier. She glanced down at the box in her hand, then back up at me. "Well, guess everything worked out for you, huh?" It wasn't a compliment, but it also wasn't anger. It was resignation. I nodded again. "Yeah, it really did." I left before she could say anything else, paid for my things, walked out into the sunlight, and for the first time ever, I didn't feel the need to look over my shoulder. She was just another person from a past I no longer owed anything to. It came on a Wednesday, just another regular day. I was in between classes, sitting outside the university library with a lukewarm coffee in one hand and my laptop balanced on my knees. Chris had just texted me a goofy selfie from work, something about surviving a boring meeting. I smiled, about to reply, when a notification slid across my screen. "Emily." My breath caught. A message, from a number I hadn't seen in months. For a second, I thought it might be a mistake. Maybe she meant to text someone else. Maybe it was just a blank message or some petty jab out of nowhere. But when I opened it, it was different. Hey, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't respond. But I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I guess I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything. I read it twice, then a third time. She wasn't the type to apologize, not for anything. The girl who once looked me in the eye and told me I didn't belong. The girl who used silence like a weapon and her voice like a blade. She was saying sorry, and I didn't know how to feel. Relief, anger, closure? I stared at the screen, waiting for my heart to decide. And eventually, it did. Not with bitterness, not even with satisfaction, just stillness. Because the truth was, I didn't need her apology. Not anymore. I had already let it go. She'd done damage, sure. She humiliated me, tried to push me out, made me question my place. But the moment I took back my power, silently, without her permission, was the moment she lost the ability to define my worth. I didn't need her to validate my healing. I had already walked that road, alone. And now she was trying to catch up to something I no longer carried. But I also knew this. It takes something to apologize, even if it's late, even if it doesn't fix what happened. So I typed slowly, thoughtfully. Thank you for saying that. It means something. Even now, I hope you're doing better. Truly. I didn't ask questions. I didn't reopen old wounds. And I didn't expect anything back. She replied with just one more message. I'm trying. That's all I can say right now. And that was it. No dramatic reconciliation. No over-the-top moment of forgiveness. Just two women who had lived through a storm, acknowledging in their own quiet ways that it had passed. Chris asked about it later that night. I told him the truth. She reached out. He raised his eyebrows. And? I think she's trying to change, I said, or at least trying to look at herself honestly. He sighed. Took her long enough. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly. But sometimes, even late is better than never. I didn't forgive her all at once. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip, it's a process. But that message, it was the first time she didn't try to rewrite the story. She didn't justify, didn't twist it around, she just owned it. And maybe that's all I ever needed from her. Not approval, not redemption, just acknowledgement. A crack in the mask, a moment of truth. And it was enough. Looking back now, it wasn't just about Emily. It was about the way people like her move through the world. Loud, confident, untouchable. And the way people like me are expected to move around them. Quiet, accommodating, invisible. For so long, I thought strength meant keeping the peace, biting my tongue, being the bigger person. But peace isn't real if you have to shrink to keep it. And being the bigger person doesn't mean letting someone walk all over you. Sometimes, strength is silent, but deliberate. It's choosing not to scream when you're being cornered. It's standing your ground when no one else will speak up. It's watching someone unravel and knowing you had the power to break them, but choosing a better kind of justice. Emily tried to define me by the way I entered her space, like I was temporary, like I didn't belong. But here's what I've learned. Belonging isn't something people grant you. It's something you claim, with every boundary you set, every insult you don't accept, every time you rise anyway. She thought she could humiliate me. She thought she could isolate me. But all she did was hand me a mirror. And in that mirror, I saw the version of myself she never expected, resilient, clear-eyed, and stronger than her words. Not because I got revenge, but because I stopped needing her to see me. I saw myself. Today, our apartment is filled with things that are mine. Not just physically, but emotionally. There's laughter in the walls, warmth in the quiet. And not once have I ever had to earn my place here by enduring disrespect. Chris and I are still growing, learning each other, learning ourselves. But it's honest now, mutual, peaceful. And Emily? I don't know where her journey will take her. Maybe she'll change. Maybe she won't. that part isn't mine to carry anymore. Because this story wasn't about punishing her. It was about reclaiming me. If you've ever been made to feel small, if someone tried to push you out of a place where you had every right to be, I want you to hear this. You don't have to scream to be powerful. You don't have to be cruel to be strong. You don't have to break someone else to find healing. Sometimes the quietest people carry the deepest strength. And sometimes the best kind of revenge is simply this: living well, freely, and completely on your own terms. Thank you for walking through this story with me. If you've ever felt overlooked, disrespected, or underestimated, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments, like, subscribe, and stay connected, because this is a place where the quiet ones are finally heard. We'll talk again soon.